Ladies and gentlemen, we live in a world so loud, you can't even hear your own thoughts anymore. Everybody's got an opinion, everybody's got a post, everybody's got a plan for your life except you. And as long as you let the noise of the world drown out the whisper of your calling, you'll stay busy, but you won't be productive. Family, listen to me. We live in a time where the world has gotten louder than ever before. Everywhere you turn, someone's trying to sell you something, show you something, or tell you who you should be. The noise is constant. Notifications, opinions, arguments, advertisements. Every second of every day, something is demanding your attention. And if you're not careful, you'll spend your entire life reacting to noise instead of responding to purpose. The truth is, you can't build a meaningful life while you're tuned into everyone else's broadcast. Sometimes you have to shut it all off so you can finally hear your own voice, because clarity doesn't come from chaos, it comes from quiet. You can't hear direction while you're drowning in distraction. You can't receive wisdom while you're addicted to noise. The reason so many people feel stuck is not because they're not capable. It's because they're too busy listening to everybody but themselves. They've got 1,000 voices telling them what to do, where to go, and who to become. But they never stop long enough to ask, what's God telling me to do? The most powerful people on this planet are not the loudest ones. They're the ones who can hear in silence. You see, wisdom doesn't yell, it whispers. And if your life is too noisy, you'll miss it every single time. There's a reason great ideas are born in quiet moments. There's a reason clarity comes when you finally step away from the crowd. Because it's only when the world gets silent that your spirit can start to speak. But let's be real, cutting out the noise isn't easy. We've become addicted to it. The scroll, the buzz, the click, the update, it's like background music for our anxiety. And the scary part is it feels normal. We think being constantly stimulated means being connected, but it's the opposite. The more noise you let in, the more disconnected you become from your real self. You start to lose sight of what truly matters. You start to measure your value by what people think instead of who you are. That's why so many people are chasing validation instead of vision. They want applause more than alignment. But family, listen to me. You can't hear your calling if you're too busy listening for claps. You've got to learn to turn down the world's volume so you can turn up your focus. Because the moment you start focusing on what truly matters, everything else begins to fall into place. The people who succeed in life are not the ones who do the most. They're the ones who do what matters most. They've learned how to filter out distractions and put their attention on what moves the needle. You've got to ask yourself daily, is this noise or is this nourishment? Because everything that sounds important isn't significant. Just because it demands your attention doesn't mean it deserves it. You've got to become selective about what gets access to your mind. See, your mind is like fertile soil. Whatever you plant in it will grow. If you plant fear, doubt, and drama, that's what will multiply. But if you plant focus, faith, and purpose, that's what will take root. You can't produce greatness if your garden is full of weeds. So you got to do some pruning. You've got to pull out distractions by the root. That means letting go of certain conversations, certain people, and certain habits that keep you trapped in noise. Some people won't understand why you've gone quiet. That's fine. You're not being rude. You're being refined. Because silence is where strength is built. Most people don't realize this. The louder the world gets, the more valuable your focus becomes. Focus is the new currency. In a distracted world, the one who can concentrate wins. Every great invention, every successful business, every extraordinary achievement came from someone who learned how to block out the noise and lock in on their mission. You can't build a skyscraper with divided attention. You can't write a masterpiece while checking your phone every 5 minutes. You can't transform your life if your focus is scattered across 100 different things that don't even matter. Cutting out the noise means getting comfortable with being misunderstood. Because when you stop feeding the chaos will start talking about you. People will call you distant, arrogant, or disconnected, but you're not any of those things. You're focused. And focus often looks like isolation to people who don't understand discipline. You've got to remember that your future is too valuable to waste on distractions that don't produce results. Every time you say yes to noise, you're saying no to purpose. Every moment you spend scrolling through someone else's life is a moment you're not building your own. When you start cutting out the noise, at first it feels lonely, but soon it feels powerful. You begin to see clearly. You begin to think clearly. You begin to move with intention instead of impulse. That's when you start to notice progress. The less you chase noise, the more peace you find. And peace is what gives you power. Because when your mind is calm, your vision gets sharp. And when your vision gets sharp, you become unstoppable. Some people are running all day long, chasing every task, answering every call, showing up for every request. And at the end of the day, they collapse in bed exhausted but empty. They confuse activity with progress. Just because you're moving doesn't mean you're advancing. You can be in motion and still be standing in the same place. It's like being on a treadmill. You're sweating, you're moving, you're tired, but you're not going anywhere. The problem isn't effort, it's direction. The reason so many people feel frustrated is because they've mistaken business for effectiveness. They think being booked means being productive, but being busy is not a badge of honor. It's often a symptom of lack of focus. Everywhere you go, the world tells you to hustle harder, grind longer, and never stop moving. But what's the point of moving fast if you're going in the wrong direction? A lot of people are sprinting toward nowhere with impressive speed. They look busy to the world, but they're not building anything that lasts. You've got to pause and ask yourself, is what I'm doing every day moving me closer to the life I want, or just keeping me distracted from it? Because if your activity isn't connected to your assignment, it's just noise disguised as productivity. You see, true progress doesn't come from how much you do. It comes from how intentionally you do it. Some of you are fighting battles that aren't even yours. You're trying to fix problems that don't belong to you. You're spending energy in areas that don't return anything of value. You've got to learn to focus your fire. A magnifying glass can't burn anything until the sunlight is focused. The same is true for you. The energy that's scattered never creates power, but the energy that's focused creates fire. Most people don't need more hours in a day. They need more clarity about what actually matters. When you don't know what matters most, everything feels urgent. You start saying yes to everything because you're afraid to say no. But every yes to something unimportant is a no to something essential. You can't let the urgent replace the important. You've got to learn to prioritize your purpose over your pressure, because the truth is doing more won't fix your life. Doing what matters will. Business is often a form of procrastination. Some people stay busy because they're avoiding the one thing that truly matters. They'd rather feel productive than face what's painful. They'll organize their desk, respond to 100 messages, attend every meeting, and still not touch the thing that will actually move them forward. But you can't build your destiny doing comfortable tasks. Progress demands that you confront what you've been avoiding. You can't keep sweeping purpose under a pile of pointless activity. Every minute you spend doing something meaningless is a minute stolen from what could make you great. You've got to be ruthless with your time. Protect it like it's treasure, because it is. You can get more money, but you can never get more time. Once it's gone, it's gone. That's why focus is the difference between people who dream and people who achieve. The achievers understand that not everything deserves their attention. They know how to say, that's not my assignment. They understand that every distraction has a cost. You have to realize that movement doesn't always equal growth. A rocking chair moves all day but never leaves the porch. A hamster runs with passion and speed, but it never escapes the wheel. The key is not motion. The key is direction. You've got to make sure that every step you take is strategic. You've got to make sure your movement matches your mission, because if you keep running in circles, you'll end up dizzy and disappointed. It's not how fast you move that matters. It's where you're headed. You can't measure progress by exhaustion. Just because you're tired doesn't mean you're transforming. You might be busy doing things that don't matter. Stop letting your calendar control your calling. Stop measuring your worth by how much you do and start measuring it by how much impact you create. Doing more doesn't make you valuable. Becoming valuable makes what you do more powerful. Every day you should evaluate your activity. Ask yourself, is this action building my vision or burying it? Is this work producing results or just keeping me occupied? If it's not helping you grow, let it go. You've got to learn the discipline of focus. Focus is the power to say no when everything around you says yes. Focus means you don't have to do everything. You only have to do what matters most. There's a kind of peace that comes when you stop chasing everything. When you learn to slow down, when you start working with intention, when you start choosing quality over quantity, your whole life changes. You realize you don't need to be everywhere. You just need to be effective where you are. Because progress isn't about doing more, it's about doing what produces meaning. When you stop confusing activity with progress, that's when real growth begins. Your attention is the most valuable thing you own. It's more precious than money, more limited than time, and more powerful than anything you could buy. Because wherever your attention goes, your energy flows, and whatever you consistently give energy to eventually grows. That means if your attention is scattered, your results will be too. If you give your focus to distractions, you'll end up with disappointment. But if you learn to guard your attention like it's gold, you'll begin to see your life multiply in ways you couldn't imagine. Most people don't fail because they don't have potential. They fail because they don't have focus. They're letting the world spend their attention for them. Every beep, buzz, and notification is a withdrawal from their mental bank account. And at the end of the day, they wonder why they feel bankrupt. You've got to understand that your mind is not an open house. You can't let everything and everyone walk through it. Every time you give your attention to gossip, drama, or negativity, you make a deposit into something that will never pay you back. Every conversation, every thought, every moment of worry costs you something. The more you give to foolishness, the less you have left for fulfillment. That's why you have to protect your mental energy like a treasure. Because it is. Your mind was designed to create, not to be constantly consumed. You can't produce greatness if your thoughts are trapped in garbage. You've got to choose what gets access to your focus deliberately, because what you focus on today shapes who you become tomorrow. There's a reason so many people are tired and restless even when they haven't done much. They've been mentally drained by things that don't matter. You can't build peace while you're feeding on chaos. Every time you scroll through negativity, argue over nonsense, or engage in distractions that don't serve your purpose, you're feeding a monster that eats your potential. You have to decide which voices deserve your attention. Not every voice deserves a response. Not every comment deserves an answer. Not every problem deserves your participation. When you learn to ignore what doesn't matter, you begin to master your own peace. Guarding your attention doesn't mean isolating yourself from the world. It means choosing wisely what deserves your mind's power. You can't give premium energy to discount distractions. Some people are wondering why they can't seem to get ahead, but they've got their focus spread too thin. You can't drive full speed with one foot on the gas and the other on your phone. If your attention is divided, your progress will always be delayed. The secret of success isn't doing more. It's doing the right things with undivided focus. That's why great achievers aren't always smarter than everyone else, but they are more focused than everyone else. They know that attention is the bridge between imagination and manifestation. You can't plant seeds of focus in a field of distraction. That's why you have to be ruthless with your boundaries. You have to know when to say no, when to log off, when to walk away. Every yes to something meaningless steals energy from what matters most. You've got to stop renting out your mind to noise that doesn't serve your destiny. The world will always try to capture your attention. It's how it survives. Every app, every ad, every platform is fighting for your focus. But just because something is loud doesn't mean it's worthy. The loudest things rarely lead to lasting fulfillment. You've got to listen for what's real, not just what's trending. Guarding your attention means you take back control of your day. It means you decide what deserves to be on your schedule and what doesn't. It means you start living on purpose instead of reacting to everything that happens. You start waking up with intention, not just habit. You stop letting the world decide what you think about, what you feel, and what you chase. You take ownership of your mind again. Because the moment you own your attention, you own your life. When you give your focus to your goals, your growth and your faith, you begin to multiply what matters. But when you give your focus to distractions, you multiply what destroys. Focus is like fire. It will burn whatever you feed it to. Feed it to your future, and it will light your path. Feed it to foolishness, and it will burn your potential. That's why you've got to be intentional about where your eyes, your ears, and your mind live each day. Sometimes protecting your attention means disappointing people. Some won't understand why you don't answer every message or engage in every conversation. But that's the price of peace. You can't please everyone and protect your focus at the same time. The people who love you will adjust, and the ones who don't weren't meant to go where you're headed anyway. You've got to understand that every great destiny requires separation from distractions. You cannot rise while you're tied to noise. Your attention is your weapon, and the world will always try to dull it. But if you keep your mind sharp, your focus strong, and your purpose clear, nothing can stop you from becoming everything you were designed to be. Everyone wants to be seen, but not everyone wants to be significant. We live in a world obsessed with attention, where likes have become louder than legacy and followers seem more valuable than faithfulness. People are chasing visibility, thinking it's the same thing as value. But just because the crowd claps for you doesn't mean you're doing something meaningful. You've got to make a decision in your heart. Do you want to be noticed, or do you want to be necessary? Because popularity fades, but purpose endures. The truth is, chasing popularity will always lead to compromise. You start changing who you are to fit what people want. You start performing instead of progressing. You start living to impress instead of impact. That's when you lose yourself in the illusion of success. The world will always reward what's visible before it values what's valuable. That's why you see people getting recognition for things that have no foundation. But purpose doesn't need applause to be powerful. Purpose is quiet, but it's consistent. Purpose doesn't post for approval. It produces results. When you live by purpose, you don't need validation because your direction already comes from within. You start walking in alignment, not chasing attention. That's the difference between living loud and living full. Loud people make noise. Purposeful people make impact. There's a danger in needing to be seen. When your worth is based on being watched, your peace will disappear the moment people stop looking. The crowd can celebrate you today and cancel you tomorrow. If your confidence is built on applause, you'll fall apart when the clapping stops. But when your confidence comes from calling, you can keep moving even when nobody's cheering. Purpose keeps you steady when popularity shifts. You've got to be anchored in something deeper than attention, because attention is seasonal, but authenticity is eternal. You have to ask yourself what you're really chasing. Are you chasing numbers, or are you chasing meaning? Are you trying to be liked, or are you trying to be legendary? People who chase popularity measure their success by reactions. People who walk in purpose measure their success by results. One lives for approval, the other lives for alignment. And here's the truth. Popularity is easy, but purpose is costly. Purpose requires discipline, sacrifice, and self-awareness. It means doing what's right even when no one notices. It means staying consistent when no one's applauding. It means being faithful to your assignment even when it's not fashionable. The problem with popularity is that it teaches you to prioritize perception over purpose. You start caring more about how things look than how things really are. You spend your energy maintaining an image instead of building integrity. But what good is looking successful if you're not fulfilled? What good is having attention if you've lost your authenticity? The moment you start trading purpose for popularity, you start selling your peace, because you can't be authentic and approved by everyone at the same time. When you walk in purpose, you stop asking, who will like this? And start asking, who will this help? Purpose shifts your focus from self-promotion to service. It makes you realize that the goal isn't to be seen, it's to be significant. The people who leave the biggest mark on the world are not always the ones with the biggest audience. They're the ones with the biggest assignment. They understand that it's not about being everywhere. It's about being effective where you are. You've got to understand that the spotlight can blind you if you're not grounded. The higher you rise, the more tempting it becomes to start performing for approval. But if you stay grounded in your why, the applause won't move you and the criticism won't break you. You'll realize that you don't need validation from the world when you already have vision from within. Because when you live with vision, you don't need to be discovered. You just need to be developed. Every day, people trade purpose for popularity, thinking the crowd will fill their emptiness, but crowds can't fill you. They can only distract you. They can make you look successful while you feel stuck inside. You've got to remind yourself that being popular doesn't mean being powerful. Power comes from alignment with your calling, not agreement with the crowd. You can't chase both purpose and popularity. They move in opposite directions. One demands authenticity, the other demands approval. One requires depth, the other rewards display. Sometimes walking in purpose means walking alone. Sometimes it means being misunderstood. But the ones who dare to choose purpose over popularity are the ones who eventually shape the world. They're the ones who plant seeds that outlast them. They're the ones who understand that legacy isn't built in the spotlight. It's built in the shadows, in the unseen moments of obedience and consistency. That's where greatness is formed, because real success is not about being recognized. It's about being remembered for what you stood for and how you served while you were here. We live in a time where people believe that doing more means achieving more, but the truth is most people are buried under the weight of their own business. They've cluttered their lives with so many commitments, so many distractions, so many half-finished plans that they can't see clearly anymore. They're tired, not because life is hard, but because life is crowded. The problem isn't that we don't have enough time. The problem is that we've given too much of it away to things that don't matter. The key to multiplication is simplification. You don't grow by adding more. You grow by removing what's unnecessary. When you simplify your focus, you multiply your results. You've got to realize that success isn't about how much you do. It's about how much impact you create with what you do. Most people are working hard on things that don't move the needle. They mistake motion for progress. They confuse effort with effectiveness. But if you look at the people who are truly successful, they've mastered one thing, the power of focus. They know that the way to multiply is to simplify. They don't chase every idea that comes to mind. They choose a few things that matter and give those things their full attention, because divided focus leads to delayed success. You can't go deep when you're spread thin. Simplifying your life doesn't mean you're doing less. It means you're doing what matters most. It means cutting out the clutter, the noise, and the non-essential so you can give your best energy to the things that actually produce results. You can't build anything great while you're constantly distracted by the small stuff. The more complex your life becomes, the harder it is to hear your own purpose. Simplicity brings clarity, and clarity brings power. When you simplify your priorities, decisions become easier, stress becomes lighter, and progress becomes faster. You start to realize that not everything that demands your attention deserves your attention. You've got to be willing to let go of things that no longer serve your mission. Some people hold on to old habits, old relationships, and old routines because they're afraid of change. But every new level of life requires a new level of focus. You can't move into your future while you're still cluttered by your past. The things that used to serve you can now slow you down. Simplifying means learning the art of release, letting go of good things so you can make room for great things. It means saying no to what's comfortable so you can say yes to what's critical. Most people don't simplify because they think saying no makes them selfish, but saying no doesn't make you selfish. It makes you strategic. Every yes costs time, energy, and attention. And if you keep saying yes to everything, you'll run out of resources for the things that actually matter. You've got to treat your focus like a budget. If you spend it carelessly, you'll end up broke in the areas that count. Simplification is not about laziness. It's about stewardship. It's understanding that your time, your mind, and your energy are sacred resources. and you can't afford to waste them on things that don't produce purpose. Simplify your goals, simplify your schedule, simplify your thoughts. The simpler your life becomes, the more powerful your actions become. Complexity creates confusion, and confusion kills momentum. You can't execute with excellence when your attention is divided among too many directions. Sometimes the most powerful step you can take isn't adding something new, it's eliminating something old. The moment you remove the unnecessary, you create room for the extraordinary. That's how you multiply. You've got to stop trying to do everything at once. The person who tries to chase 5 rabbits catches none. Focus on one thing long enough to see it grow. Focus brings depth, and depth creates mastery. You can't master what you keep abandoning halfway. The reason many people never see results is not because they lack talent, it's because they lack consistency. They keep starting over instead of sticking through. But when you simplify your life down to what truly matters, it becomes easier to stay consistent because you're not overwhelmed by the unnecessary. Simplifying also means removing mental clutter. You've got to stop overthinking every step. Stop analyzing every outcome. Sometimes your mind is so full of options that you paralyze your own progress. Decision fatigue is real, and it's often the result of too many choices. When you simplify your direction, you strengthen your conviction. You stop second guessing yourself and start walking with confidence. The path becomes clearer when you stop trying to walk every path at once. There's beauty in simplicity. There's power in focus. And there's freedom in letting go. You don't need to do more to have more. You need to focus on less to experience more. The people who live the most fulfilled lives aren't the ones who have the most opportunities. They're the ones who have the most clarity. They know what matters and they pour themselves fully into it. Because when you simplify your focus, you stop scattering your energy and start multiplying your effectiveness. Most people spend their whole lives chasing results without ever realizing that the secret to lasting success isn't in doing more. It's in becoming more. You can change your habits, you can change your routine, you can change your schedule, but if you never change who you are on the inside, the results will always return to where your identity lies. You can't outperform the person you believe yourself to be. You can work harder, but until you grow deeper, your life will always repeat the same cycles. That's why focusing on becoming is far more powerful than just focusing on doing. Doing gets you short-term results, but becoming changes your entire direction. When you focus on doing, you're chasing checklists. You're trying to get things done, mark boxes, and feel productive. But when you focus on becoming, you start to transform your character, your mindset, and your perspective. You stop asking, what do I need to do? And start asking, who do I need to become? Because success doesn't come from action alone. It comes from alignment. When your identity aligns with your purpose, your actions begin to flow with power. Doing without becoming is like pouring water into a leaking bucket. It looks busy but never fills up. Becoming is about the internal work. It's about discipline when nobody's watching. It's about patience when progress feels slow. It's about faith when results aren't visible yet. You can't fake becoming. You can't post it on social media or package it into a quick motivational quote. Becoming happens in silence and struggle, in the moments when quitting feels easier than continuing. It's the process of refining who you are until your outer world starts to reflect your inner growth. When you focus only on results, your motivation rises and falls with circumstances. If things go well, you feel confident. If things slow down, you lose hope. But when you focus on becoming, your stability no longer depends on external outcomes. You start moving from purpose, not pressure. You start acting from conviction, not convenience. Doing can make you busy. Becoming makes you powerful. The more you grow internally, the more naturally success flows externally. You've got to understand that everything you attract in life is a reflection of who you are, not just what you do. If you want to attract better opportunities, you've got to become a better version of yourself. If you want to lead people, you have to become someone worth following. If you want to create wealth, you have to become disciplined enough to manage it. The outer world always mirrors the inner one. People spend years trying to change circumstances when what they really need to change is character. Once your mindset evolves, your environment will eventually catch up. Becoming requires honesty. You've got to face the parts of yourself that keep sabotaging your progress. You've got to confront your habits, your fears, your excuses, and your patterns. Growth doesn't happen by accident. It happens by awareness. You can't fix what you refuse to face. That's why real transformation starts with truth. You have to be willing to say, this version of me was enough to get me here, but it's not enough to take me there. When you start thinking like that, every day becomes an opportunity to refine yourself into someone stronger, wiser, and more disciplined. Doing focuses on outcomes, becoming focuses on identity. When you change who you are, what you do automatically changes. You don't have to force better habits when you become the kind of person who naturally lives them. You don't have to struggle to stay consistent when you become someone who values consistency as part of their character. That's the difference between temporary effort and permanent transformation. The goal isn't to just reach success, it's to grow into the kind of person who can sustain it. The journey of becoming is often uncomfortable because it requires shedding what's familiar. You have to let go of the version of yourself that's attached to comfort, fear, and doubt. Growth always demands release. You can't move forward while holding on to who you used to be. Every new level of life requires a new version of you. And that version doesn't just appear, it's built through discipline, resilience, and commitment. You build it every time you choose patience over frustration, focus over distraction, and faith over fear. You can't transform your life by tweaking the surface. Real change happens at the root. When you become better, everything connected to you becomes better. Your relationships change, your finances change, your energy changes, and your peace multiplies. People will start to notice something different about you, not because of what you're doing, but because of who you're becoming. There's a power in quiet evolution that no amount of external validation can match. Becoming is a lifelong process. You don't arrive, you evolve. Every season of your life reveals another layer of who you're meant to be. You'll look back one day and realize that every challenge was shaping you, every delay was developing you, every hardship was preparing you. Because life isn't just about achieving goals, it's about growing into the kind of person who's worthy of them. When you focus on becoming, everything else eventually aligns. Family life gets louder the closer you get to your purpose. That's when you've got to turn the volume down on the world and turn the volume up on your mission. Cut out the noise. Focus on what truly matters. Because when you master your focus, you master your future.